Mark Eversley has made it clear the Chicago Bulls do not want to go in a full rebuild. Is this a good decision or a bad decision? Y'all know we're going to talk about it all, break it down, talk a little smack about our Chicago Bulls and love them a little bit as well. But you got to hear the music first.
Cognac. Gang.
Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as we are on the road to 10K. Thank y'all so much for the continued support, and we hope that support continues. Thank y'all. But nonetheless, so it was an article that was released by Jamal Collier, and there was a lot of things in that article from different team sources. We got into the Zach LaVine part of that article, but now I want to get into the Mark Eversley part about this and the direction of the Chicago Bulls. Now, when we talked about the direction of the Chicago Bulls, we've been talking about it since last year. Probably before that, you know what I'm saying, that the Chicago Bulls need to come together, put their heads together as the organization and say, hey, we're going to continue to ride this thing out, continue to build around a big three in Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, or Nikola Vucevic, or they simply need to get rid of some of these older guys and pivot and really, really hone in and focus on their young talent. It seems that the Chicago Bulls have kind of started to turn that way, but it's not a full right turn or left turn that the organization has made. But in that article with Jamal Collier, Mark Eversley had a few things just to kind of put Bulls fans in on notice and let them know that we ain't going to be in a Cooper Flag Tankathon. That's just what it is. Mark Eversley in that article said, and quote, "There's no appetite in our building to go young and just blow it all up. We've gone young. We got players who are experienced and give us a greater opportunity to have a longer runway for sustainability to win in meaningful games for a longer time. I don't want to, a year from now, be winning 15 games and focusing on the lottery. We have an opportunity here to roll out younger players who give us an opportunity to turn things around, maybe not quicker, but in a more pragmatic approach than just looking at the future and building through the draft." End quote. Now, I have no problem with this statement coming from Mark Eversley. Not necessarily the person, but just the statement, because I'm a little iffy still about this Bulls front office. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I would say there has been some good. There's been a lot of bad. And then recently, as of right now, some decisions have been understandable and good. You know what I'm saying? The move to move Alex Caruso, I believe, was a good idea. Did it work out, or was it everything that I wanted? No, but I say that it was a solid move. It probably is a B because they didn't really get draft capital. Then when you talk about allowing DeMar DeRozan to walk, but then coming back into that situation, helping facilitate a sign and trade, and then still getting additional draft capital and a player out of that when you really didn't necessarily have to get involved with that, but they decided to. So those were some decent moves, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then when we talk about the Tankathon for Cooper Flag, the Tankathon for Cooper Flag, I know it sounds great. And Chicago Bulls fans, I know that Cooper Flag is not a scrub. I'm not saying that he is. But what I'm saying is that we already have this culture in Chicago of let's keep running this thing on the same pinwheel with, had a hamster in the wheel and keep running in the circles and keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I respect Mark Eversley for the comment because you do have a lot of young talent on this squad. And I really, really believe these young players have earned their opportunity to see what they can show without having that many roadblocks in their way. DeMar DeRozan was one. Zach LaVine is still on the team, but he's possibly one. Nikola Vucevic is still one. But I believe that overall, the young talent mixed with the few vets that we have here and there, I believe it's a good place to start versus saying we ain't going to have no veterans on this team. We're going to have a bunch of one-year players on this team, and we just going to roll them out and hope that we win 15 games. But the Chicago Bulls, they have a number of young talented guys with years of experience on this squad that still have years to go in their development, and some may develop faster than others, some may not, and some may not even be here for the long term. But when I look at Kobe White, who's been an NBA player for over 3+ years, you got to give him that. You got to show him some love for how he took a major leap forward and see if he can continuously take another step forward without so many roadblocks in his way. You got Ayo Dosunmu, who's a 3+ year experienced NBA player. You got Patrick Williams, who's been in the league for over 3 years now. You got Josh Giddey, who you traded for, who has multiple years in the league now. Chris Duarte is another guy. Then you talk about Adama Sanogo, who's had not so much NBA experience, but some experience, and we don't know if he's going to be called up to the main roster. But it is a possibility. I say you look at that. I see you look at prospects like Orlot Batim, see if he still has a way or a role with this team. And then you still look at some of the vets that you have on this team surrounding that. So I'm with that. And when you talk about the young guys, these guys, in my opinion, are battle tested. It might not be to the degree of some of the other players that surround the league who's seen multiple playoff series, who's been through round 1, 2, 3, and then the NBA finals. But when we look at Josh Giddey, this guy, you know what I'm saying? He was a part of a rebuild with OKC, you know what I'm saying? And went through those down days, and then they battled and see how they built that culture up. And then eventually they got into they got into the playoffs last year. And my guy was present and know what it really feels like to play at a high level so you can capture a top seed in the West. Then play at a high level in round 1. And then play at a high level in round 2. It wasn't the best for Josh Giddey, but he has that experience and he's battle tested. Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, Patrick Williams, they know how it feels to have a high in the NBA with being the number 1 seed when Lonzo Ball was rocking with the Chicago Bulls. And they know the lows of missing out on Zach LaVine because of injury, or Lonzo Ball because he hasn't played for 2 seasons. They know what it feels like to go down at the second half of the season and really, really push for a playoff spot, end up in a play-in and one elimination game, and knows what it feels like and what it requires to win a winner-takes-all game. You know what I'm saying? So these young guys are already battle-tested. That's why I'm good with Mark Eversley and his decision to say, hey, there's no appetite in this building to simply go young. And I honestly, I was on board with that in the first place. I believe these guys are well deserving of an opportunity to show their skills, to see if this can be a young team that now you can just look at and say, hey, if we add another veteran piece that's on the market, we could probably go ahead and do something. I know there's a lot of things that's being talked about around Chicago Bulls and a lot of negativity surrounding Zach LaVine, which might push a little people off. And the Bulls need to go ahead and rehabilitate those things. But I say right now, they should be in a good spot to win about 25 to 35 games with how they're presently constructed. I believe they're going to win some games that you don't expect them to win at all. And I believe they're going to win, some games to where you like, okay, Chicago, you're supposed to win this game. And then they go win the game. So I think it's going to be a lot of that. I think it's going to be a lot of things that the Chicago Bulls will see from these young players, and Bulls fans, we will see more exciting basketball. I believe that they're going to be faster. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to pace, they're going to be better in transition. I believe there's going to be a higher volume of three-point shooting. There's going to be a different play style that these Bulls players come out and play with, because now you don't have a DeMar DeRozan who's really a tactician and has to slow things down and get to a spot, or Nikola Vucevic who wants the ball in the post and kind of wants to take his time before he decides to either pass out or makes an attempt at the basket. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be real interesting to see. And Mark Eversley just didn't stop there with some of the quotes that he placed in this article. He also he believes that the Chicago Bulls are in a strong place right now. One of the quotes that stood out to me, it said, Mark Eversley said, "We've gone young. We've got players who are experienced and give us a great opportunity to have a longer runway for sustainability to winning meaningful games for a longer time." And I kind of agree with that. These guys are all young. You know what I'm saying? These guys you don't necessarily have to get rid of. These guys that you continue to move around. And I always say this: you don't want to establish a culture of losing. You don't want to establish a culture of we just gonna give up players and things like that and not really give them an opportunity to grow within our system. The Chicago Bulls invested in their player development system. Now it's time to put that stuff in, right on the front for us. We seen Kobe White with Peter Patton, take that leap last year. You seen Ayo Dosunmu now start to be transformed into the player we believe he can be and more. And you just want to see how Dalen Terry now comes around. Julian Phillips now comes around. And so many other players, even the new rookie, Montes Buzelis. They have a huge opportunity in front of them, and they should be good. Excuse me, should to go. And the last thing for my people that say that the Bulls should tank, I say this: don't forcefully tank. You know what I'm saying? Go out here and try to win some ball games. But if it comes down to it, just protect the pick. That's it. Protect the pick. If you got to pull a Dallas Mavericks and lose the last 2 games of the season on purpose so we can secure the pick, cool. But don't go ahead and completely diminish what's in front of you with these young guys. You know what I'm saying? Because I believe we got some competitors on this squad, and I'm gonna say that the 2 guys that I believe that really want to shine is Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. They know how big this upcoming season is. So I'd say you allow those young guys to show what they're made of. Because if we're talking about teams that have tanked in the past, we look at how bad the Detroit Pistons was, and I said this plenty of times. You look at how bad the Detroit Pistons was, and they still didn't end up with a top 3 pick. They ended up at 4 the last 2 seasons. And it's just not the draft odds have leveled off to where the worst team doesn't have that automatic we're gonna get the number 1 pick, or the luck of getting a number 1 pick is not the same as it once was when Joel Embiid was telling everybody to trust the process. So things have changed. Now, if you can go ahead and you can secure your top 10 pick and make sure that you get a top 10 pick and you remain in that top 10, who knows? You might be able to steal. And what a lot of people believe, this is one of the deeper draft in recent years. You can still potentially come out with a game changer. You know what I'm saying? We look at, and I go back to the Dallas Mavericks one more time. They protected that top 10 pick. They got themselves Derek Lively. They went to the finals. I'm not saying that's what the Bulls are going to be doing next year, but I'm just saying you can still find impactful players. The only thing is how much do we trust this front office to find those impactful players? You know what I'm saying? Because right now, Mark Eversley and AK, they kind of have their style or their type player prototype that they've been looking at. If you look at P. Will, P. Will, Montes Buzelis, Dalen Terry, and Julian Phillips, all those guys kind of have the same makeup. Some players probably was a little more raw of a talent than the others, but they still have that long frame, you know what I'm saying, with the long arms, those wing type players that you can utilize in today's game. I think it's a very, I think it was a little shaky with some of the decisions, and we've grown to like them now, but when the time was right, we like, what about Walker Kessler? You know what I'm saying? Or, hey, you went and got P. Will, but there was other players, Tyrese Halliburton. I know those was, players down the draft that eventually panned out and developed faster than Patrick Williams. So I understand it there, but we shall see what happens, man. I think that right now, this decision to say that we're not going to be in a tankathon for Cooper Flag is actually a good one. It's actually a good one. These young guys deserve an opportunity to show if they can surprise some people. And that's how I really look at it, because they can have a hot start and then eventually tail off. You know what I'm saying? And as long as you protect the pick, that's how I'm looking at it. But I'm happy that they're not going into the tankathon, because that can really be detrimental to the culture. We already don't have a good enough culture in my eyes based on the coaching staff. And I know they made upgrades there, but we still got to push forward. And I believe just if you go into tank mode, you taking steps back. Now, some may argue that, hey, you take a couple steps back, you can take 3 or 4 or 5 steps forward. Cool. But I believe they took a couple steps back by making the Alex Caruso trade, by making a DeMar DeRozan trade. So that's 2 steps back. Now you get Josh Giddey. You see if Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White can rise to the occasion. You see if P. Will can eventually break out. You see, you wait and see. And I ain't saying that you got to wait forever, but you wait and see to see what you can get out of this. And I'm okay with the Chicago Bulls not going into full tank mode. So they just got to put actions behind the words, because we tired of all this talking. That's just what it really comes down to. Y'all know we going to keep it a bean. You know we going to keep it a buck and keep it real. And we going to criticize appropriately. Right now, the Bulls, they haven't done a great job of what the Zach LaVine stuff. But what's good right now is not being a team that's intentionally tanking. At least that's what they telling us, because they can definitely pivot and say, hell, tank mode, let's go. But as of right now, after hearing these, I'm good with it. Let me know how y'all feel about it all down below, because that is it from me today, ladies and gentlemen. I talked enough. I want to hear you all's thoughts down below. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel on your way out. And you already know. Thank you, Bulls Nations. Of course, see Red, and y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. For sure.
Cognac. Gang.